In 5 seasons at Manchester United, Ruud van Nistelrooy scored 150 goals in 219 games. That puts him 11th in the Red Devils' all-time scoring charts, but with a better goals per game record than anyone in the club's top 10. Sergio Aguero and Thierry Henry are the only players to have played as many games in the Premier League and have been more prolific than Van Nistelrooy, yet the Dutchman is rarely cited as one of the league's or Manchester United's greatest players, perhaps somewhat harshly so. I have seen Gary Neville remark on a couple of recent occasions that although Van Nistelrooy was perhaps Manchester United's most talented striker during his time at the club, he perhaps wasn't the best suited to how Alex Ferguson wanted to play. In evidence, Neville points out that during his 5 seasons at Old Trafford, Van Nistelrooy only won 1 Premier League title, which was a pretty barren spell by Sir Alex's standards. Ever since I did videos on every Newcastle striker since Shearer and every Arsenal striker since Henry, there have been calls for a Manchester United version. Some people have requested every striker since Cantona, since Van Nistelrooy, and Van Persie. If I did every striker since Cantona, I'd be here all week, and everyone since Van Persie would be fairly short and most still pretty familiar, so Van Nistelrooy it is. To be clear, Ruud van Nistelrooy left Manchester United to join Real Madrid in July 2006, so I'm going to be taking a look at every player who has played as a centre-forward for Manchester United in a Premier League game since the start of the 2006-07 campaign, and where those players are now. Wayne Rooney, Derby County. Inevitably, we start this video with strikers who played alongside Ruud van Nistelrooy at Manchester United, but we also just so happen to start with the club's all-time record goalscorer. Whilst Wayne Rooney only averaged 0.45 goals per game at Old Trafford, compared to Van Nistelrooy's 0.68, the Englishman also played 340 more games at the club than Ruud. Rooney arrived at Manchester United from Everton in 2004 as Britain's most exciting wonderkid, and he went on to spend at least a decade as one of the finest players on these shores. Rooney left Manchester United in 2017, returning to Everton, and then spending 18 months in the MLS with DC United, but he now serves as player coach at Championship outfit Derby County. Louis Saha, retired. Alex Ferguson moved heaven and earth to try and sign Louis Saha in January 2004, with Saha having impressed in Fulham's 3-1 win against Manchester United at Old Trafford earlier that season. Saha had already scored 15 goals at the halfway mark that season, and he set Manchester United back £12.4 million. In 4.5 seasons at the Theatre of Dreams, Saha scored 42 goals in 124 games before departing for Everton. Brief stints at Tottenham, Sunderland and Lazio followed before the former French international hung up his boots in 2013. Alan Smith, free agent. Alan Smith joined Manchester United as a centre-forward but departed as a central midfielder, with Alex Ferguson finding a new role for the Englishman. Smith is a man who divided opinion among Leeds fans, having famously declared that he would never join Manchester United prior to the club's relegation, a transfer caveated by the fact that Leeds would have been in even graver trouble were it not for the £7 million that they received for Smith. The Englishman made 93 appearances in 3 seasons at Old Trafford before signing for Newcastle, and now aged 39, he has been without a club since leaving Notts County in 2018. Henrik Larsson, unattached. The first player in this video not to have played alongside Ruud van Nistelrooy at Manchester United, Henrik Larsson famously spent half a season on loan at Old Trafford the season after Van Nistelrooy departed. Larsson was back playing in Sweden with Helsingborg, aged 35, when Alex Ferguson brought him on loan to United. During Sweden's off-season, Larsson made 13 appearances for Manchester United, and Ferguson was desperate to keep the veteran around. Larsson had made commitments to return, however, and departed having scored 1 goal in the FA Cup, 1 goal in the Premier League, and 1 goal in the Champions League. Larsson essentially retired in 2009, making brief returns in 2012 and 2013, and he moved into management in 2010. Now aged 48, Larsson most recently managed his former club Helsingborg, but he has been without a club since 2019. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Manchester United manager. Just looking at the list of strikers I have to get through, it occurs to me that I'm probably going to have to speed this up. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer spent 11 years at Manchester United, scoring 126 goals in 366 games, earning the nickname the baby-faced assassin and a reputation for scoring big goals, often having been introduced from the bench. Solskjaer retired at Manchester United in 2007 and now obviously manages his former club. Dong Fangzhou, retired. The first East Asian footballer to play for Manchester United, Dong Fang-ju, banged in goals on loan at Royal Antwerp, but only ever made one league appearance in 4 years at Old Trafford. He later had spells in Poland, Portugal, Armenia and obviously China, but he won his last cap aged 22 and retired for good in 2014, aged only 29. Carlos Tevez, Boca Juniors. Another man who has been in the news quite recently, relating to Gary Neville once again, the Sky Sports pundit had a slightly spiky debate over video call with Tevez's agent regarding the striker's level of commitment during his second season at Old Trafford. Tevez spent 2 years playing for Manchester United, but despite forming an incredible front three with Wayne Rooney and Cristiano Ronaldo, both Tevez and Ronaldo departed in 2009. Aged 36, Tevez now plays for Boca Juniors in what is his third stint back with his boyhood club. Fraser Campbell, Huddersfield Town. A man who has gone from hero to villain and then back to hero again amongst Hull City fans, I feel as though Fraser Campbell perhaps hasn't quite reached the heights that he could have as a player. So electric in the Championship as a teenager in 2008, Campbell went on to play for Tottenham and Crystal Palace among many others, as well as winning one cap for England. Campbell only ever played 2 Premier League games for Manchester United, and he returned to his hometown club Huddersfield Town on a free transfer last summer. DIMITAR BERBATOV, retired. One of Manchester United's most gifted and indeed most prolific strikers since Ruud van Nistelrooy, DIMITAR BERBATOV scored 56 goals in 149 games for the Red Devils. Perhaps a little like Van Nistelrooy though, Berbatov wasn't always deemed to be the best fit for how Sir Alex wanted to play. After leaving Old Trafford, Berbatov played for Fulham, MANUCHO, PALCAO and Kerala Blasters, retiring in 2018. Danny Welbeck, Watford. Manchester born and raised, Danny Welbeck actually joined Manchester United before Ruud van Nistelrooy, but he was only 10 years old at the time. Welbeck went on to play just shy of 150 games for his boyhood club before signing for Arsenal. Injuries plagued the Englishman's time with the Gunners, and he has continued to be sidelined for most of his time with Watford as well. MANUCHO, free agent. The second former Hull City loanee in this video, subscribers to this channel will know, I'm not one to be overly negative about players, but MANUCHO really was terrible during his time with us. He did actually score a key goal to help keepers in the Premier League, but only because Giovanni lifted him up so he could score a header against Fulham. My jaw practically detached from my face then when I saw the big frontman score a brace against Real Madrid in 2013, but now aged 37, MANUCHO is currently without a club. Federico MACHEDA, PANATHINAIKOS. The man who famously salvaged the 2008-09 Premier League title for Manchester United just as it looked to be slipping from their grasp, the 2 goals in 4 league games that Macheda scored that season would end up being a personal best for him in the Premier League. More than a decade on, now aged 28, the uncapped Italian is starring in Greece for Panathinaikos. Michael Owen, retired. Pundit, author, racehorse owner, there are many titles one could bestow upon a modern day Michael Owen, but certainly he is retired from football. It's easy to see why so many people don't like Owen, but for some reason I find him strangely endearing, and we certainly ought not forget what an incredible footballer he once was. Owen was in the autumn of his playing days when he spent 3 seasons playing under Sir Alex, and he retired in 2013 after Tony Pulis reportedly sucked all life and joy for football out of him at Stoke City. Gabriel Obertan, BB Erzurumspor. I must admit that I have no recollection of Gabriel Obertan ever playing as a centre forward, only as a winger, but apparently he did, and for that reason he features. The speedy Frenchman made 14 league appearances at Old Trafford, none of them particularly impressive. He now plays in Turkey's second tier for recently relegated BB Erzurumspor. Mambiram Diouf, Stoke City. One of Manchester United's most forgettable strikers of the last decade, Mambiram Diouf made only 5 Premier League appearances for the Red Devils. He enjoyed success with Hanover after leaving the club before returning to the Premier League with Stoke City. Following a really promising debut campaign, Diouf has struggled in Staffordshire, and somehow he is still with the club. Javier Hernandez, LA Galaxy. A popular figure at Old Trafford, Javier Hernandez always played with real enthusiasm for Manchester United, scoring plenty of goals in the process. His record was almost identical to that of Dimitar Berbatov, despite many of Hernandez's appearances coming off the bench. Since leaving Old Trafford, the man they call Chicharito has turned out for Bayer Leverkusen, West Ham and Sevilla, before most recently rocking up in Los Angeles with LA Galaxy. Bebe, Rayo Vallecano. Often cited as one of Sir Alex Ferguson's worst ever signings, Portuguese import Bebe was supposed to be the next Cristiano Ronaldo, but he wasn't even fit to lace Nani's boots. Bebe made 2 Premier League appearances for Manchester United, and apparently one of them was through the middle. He now plays for Rayo Vallecano, with whom he was relegated from La Liga last season. Will Keane, Ipswich Town. Hull City have had some gems from Manchester United over the years, but also some duds. Will Keane, I'm sorry to say, belongs to the latter grouping. Once one of the most highly rated young players at Old Trafford and indeed in England, Keane suffered a horror injury when he was still very young. He's yet to truly recover, and he now plays in League One for Ipswich Town. Robin van Persie, retired. You can see from the number of players who preceded him how different this video would be had it been every Manchester United striker since Robin van Persie rather than Ruud van Nistelrooy. Manchester United's first Dutch number 9 since Van Nistelrooy, Van Persie was almost as prolific as his compatriot at Old Trafford. He won the Premier League Golden Boot in his debut campaign and spent 3 seasons in Manchester in total. Van Persie went on to join Fenerbahce and later rejoined Feyenoord, retiring from football in 2019. James Wilson, Salford City. Another former England youth international who was once very highly rated by Manchester United, James Wilson made his Premier League debut in the final game of the 2013-14 season under Ryan Giggs, and he scored a brace against, you guessed it, Hull City. Sadly for Wilson, he only scored once in his next 14 Premier League appearances, and he now plays for Salford City, who are partly owned by his former boss Ryan Giggs. RADAMEL FALCAO, Galatasaray. One of only 3 loanees in this entire video, I think I'm right in saying, RADAMEL FALCAO was the least successful of those 3. Once one of the most feared centre forwards on earth, Falcao joined Manchester United, fresh off the back of a horrible ACL injury at Monaco. He looked to shadow his former self, only managing 4 goals from 29 appearances, and the Colombian marksman now plays in the Turkish Super League for Galatasaray. Memphis Depay, Lyon. One of Manchester United's most eagerly anticipated signings of the post-Ferguson era, only Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo sold more shirts than Memphis Depay in the summer he arrived at Manchester United. The vast majority of Depay's game time at Old Trafford came out wide, but he did play through the middle, so he has to feature. Ultimately, the Dutchman could never quite get going in the Premier League, but he has impressed in France with Lyon since leaving the club. Anthony Martial, Manchester United. The first player in this video who's still at Manchester United, Anthony Martial joined Manchester United from Monaco in 2015. A lot of people forget that Martial was Manchester United's top scorer in his debut campaign, despite playing predominantly on the left. It is primarily this season that Martial has begun to play through the middle, and the frustrating Frenchman just needs to put together an extended period of consistently good form. Marcus Rashford, Manchester United. Whilst Anthony Martial has gone from playing out wide on the left to through the middle during his time at Manchester United, Marcus Rashford has gone the opposite way over the last few years. Following his brilliant breakthrough, some had started to question Rashford's future last season, but he has silenced a lot of those critics this term. Still only 22, he has already scored 64 goals in 201 games for Manchester United. ZLATAN IBRAHIMOVIC, AC Milan. A short-term signing by Jose Mourinho, who did a superb job at Manchester United, Zlatan Ibrahimovic arrived in the Premier League from PSG, with some questioning whether he'd still be able to hack it in England's top flight. He made a mockery of the sceptics by bagging 28 goals in 46 games in his debut campaign, before suffering an injury that effectively ended his time at the club. Ibrahimovic subsequently went off to score a hatful of goals in Los Angeles before rejoining AC Milan for one last hurrah in Serie A. Josh Harrop, Preston North End. The only player in this video with a better goal-to-game ratio in the Premier League than Ruud van Nistelrooy, Josh Harrop's record in the league with Manchester United reads, played 1, scored 1. That goal came against Crystal Palace in the 2016-17 season, but Harrop rejected the Red Devils' contract offer in the summer of 2017 and chose to leave the club on a free transfer. Nearby Preston North End were his suitors, and Harrop has since scored 12 goals in 75 games for the Championship outfit. Alexis Sanchez, Inter Milan. Another forward who played primarily as a wide man, Alexis Sanchez, did on occasion deputise through the middle for Manchester United. In truth, whether he was out wide or through the middle, Sanchez looked totally out of sorts at Old Trafford. His dreadful form was pretty shocking given how brilliant Sanchez had been for Arsenal, and the Chilean has spent this season on loan in Italy with Inter Milan. Romelu Lukaku, Inter Milan. Inter Milan have developed a bit of a penchant for Manchester United players over the last 12 months, and the most notable of their arrivals from Manchester has been Romelu Lukaku. Lukaku is guaranteed goals and always has been, but he looks a little sluggish and off the boil towards the end of his time at Old Trafford. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer supposedly felt Lukaku didn't fit into his plans, and Inter Milan were more than happy to take him off the Red Devils' hands. Since arriving in Milan, Belgium's all-time top scorer has bagged 23 goals in 35 games. Tahith Chong, Manchester United. Only the second Dutchman in this video, if Tahith Chong can replicate anything like the level of performance Ruud van Nistelrooy and Robin van Persie showed at the Theatre of Dreams, he'll go down as a club legend. Chong can play on the left, right, in attacking midfield or at centre forward, and he has been named as both United's Young Player and Reserve Player of the Year in successive seasons. Aged 20, Chong has made 5 Premier League appearances to date and 15 appearances in all competitions. Mason Greenwood, Manchester United. A man who I have real affinity with, having taken him on loan for 3 successive seasons on my current Football Manager save with Bristol City. I can never afford to sign him, but despite having been the Premier League's second highest scorer last season, Massimiliano Allegri was inexplicably still happy to let him return to Ashton Gate on loan. Anyhow, back in the real world, Greenwood isn't yet enjoying 22-goal seasons at the highest level. Quick, two-footed and incredibly precise in front of goal, he is an incredible prospect though, and he has scored 5 goals from 25 Premier League appearances to date, predominantly from the bench. ODION IGHALO, Manchester United. The third and final loanee in this video, and indeed the final player, ODION IGHALO, has already scored as many goals on loan at Manchester United as RADAMEL FALCAO did. The Nigerian international has scored 4 goals from 8 appearances to date, although none of those goals have come in the Premier League. The Red Devils apparently have an interest in signing IGHALO on a permanent basis, but they will have to compete with Shanghai Shenhua, who are apparently willing to pay him $7.5 billion a second if he agrees to stay in China, or something equally absurd anyway. That's it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. Let us know what you thought in the comments, give us a like if you enjoyed it, and as always, do subscribe to HITC Sevens.